For 22 years, my husband called my embroidery a pathetic hobby, but the man at the next table heard him say it. My wife thinks she's an artist now. She embroiders flowers on her own clothes like an elderly Mennonite. It's pathetic, honestly, but it keeps her busy, so I let her. The 5 couples at the table laughed. Polite laughter. The kind that happens when no one wants to take the side of a wife against her husband at his own country club. I looked down at the breadbasket. I did not look at Mitchell. I did not look at anyone. But I felt him, the man at the next table. He had stopped eating. I felt him without turning my head. He was sitting 2 chairs over on the other side of the linen partition that the club uses to give privacy to celebration dinners. He had been there with his wife for the last hour, laughing softly, ordering champagne, holding her hand across the table. Now he had stopped laughing. Mitchell drained his bourbon and set the glass down hard enough that the woman to his left flinched. "Honey, show them the cardinal. Show them the little bird on your sleeve. Come on, show the group what you do with thread." I lifted my left wrist exactly 2 inches above the table. The cardinal was a small one, 3/4 of an inch tall, perched on a magnolia branch I had stitched in the morning of my 42nd birthday, 12 years before. I had embroidered the bird on a white linen blouse I bought from a vintage shop on Bull Street. I had worn it maybe 40 times. Mitchell had never noticed it before tonight. He noticed it tonight because Vivian Holloway, sitting to my right, had asked me where I bought my blouse, and I had told her I made the embroidery myself. That was the mistake. Compliments at the country club do not belong to women like me. I lowered my wrist. Mitchell turned to Vivian. She's been at this for 2 decades, 22 years of poking thread through linen like her grandmother, 22 years of pretending it matters. You ladies are all the same. Hobbies, 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 more polite laughter. The woman to Vivian's right reached for her wine glass without drinking from it. Her husband checked his watch. I felt the man at the next table watching. I did not know who he was. I did not know his name. I did not know why he had stopped laughing when his wife continued. I only knew that he had heard every word my husband said, and he had decided something about it. 20 minutes later, in the foyer of the country club, after I had excused myself from the table on the pretext of needing the ladies' room, I found him waiting for me near the coat check. "Ma'am, I'm sorry to intrude. I'd like to give you my card." He held it out, white cardstock, black engraved letters. I took it. I read the name. I read the company. I felt my hands begin to shake, not from fear, but from something else, something I had not felt in 22 years of marriage. He nodded once, walked back to his wife, did not look at my husband on the way past. I stood in the foyer of the country club with a card in my hand and 22 years of marriage in my throat. And in that moment, in the silence of the lobby with the chandeliers behind me and my husband's laughter still coming from the dining room, I knew that something had ended. But to understand how a single card changed the next 12 months of my life, I have to take you back to the morning Mitchell Crawford asked me to marry him. If you've ever made something with your own hands and someone you love called it pathetic, subscribe to the channel. Now let me take you back to the beginning. I am Helen Crawford. I was born in 1973 in Savannah, Georgia, in the same hospital where my mother was born and where my grandmother delivered 3 of her 4 children. I grew up in a small house on Habersham Street, 2 blocks from Forsyth Park, in the historic district where the live oaks are older than the country itself and the moss hangs low enough to touch. My mother was a 3rd-grade teacher at Charles Ellis Elementary. My father owned a hardware store on Bay Street that he inherited from his father, who had inherited it from his father. There was no money in our house, but there was a particular kind of dignity that comes from being from somewhere, from belonging to a place that knows your last name. My grandmother, Eleanor, taught 4th grade for 38 years. She also embroidered. Not as a hobby, embroidery was simply something women did in her generation. Pillowcases, handkerchiefs, the hem of a christening gown. She did not consider herself an artist. She would have laughed at the word. I did not learn to embroider from her. I never asked. She offered once when I was 11, sitting in her parlor on a rainy Sunday, and I said no because I wanted to read instead. She did not insist. She put the linen back in the basket and went to make me sweet tea. She died when I was 22 in 1995. I went to her funeral wearing a black dress my mother had bought for me, and I did not cry. My grandmother had not cried at her own mother's funeral, and I had heard about that funeral my whole life. The Crawford women did not cry in public. I did not pick up an embroidery hoop for another 8 years. I met Mitchell at a cocktail party in November of 1998. I was 25. He was 28. He had just finished his residency at the Medical University of South Carolina and was opening his first dental practice on Skidaway Road. He wore a navy blazer and a green silk tie, and he had the kind of confidence that comes from being told from birth that you matter. He found me by the punch bowl. He asked what I did. I told him I was working at the Savannah Tourism Bureau, writing brochures and answering phones. He smiled the way men smile when they decide a woman is decorative but uncomplicated. "That's a lovely little job, Helen. A lovely little job." I should have heard it then. I did not. We married in June of 2003 at the Cathedral Basilica of St. John the Baptist on Lafayette Square. I was 30 years old. He was 33. My grandmother had been dead for 8 years. I wore her veil, the one she had worn at her own wedding in 1946. I did not embroider it. I did not embroider anything yet. I started embroidering 3 months after the wedding. I do not remember the exact day. I remember only that I had bought a small white napkin at a tag sale on East Jones Street, and the napkin had a small grease stain in one corner, and I decided to cover the stain with a flower. I bought silk floss at the craft store on Abercorn. I taught myself the satin stitch from a book at the Live Oak Public Library. The first flower was crooked, and the stitches were uneven, and the petals looked like the work of a child. I made it anyway. Mitchell noticed it on the dining table 6 weeks later. He picked up the napkin, examined the embroidery, and said, "Cute, honey. Now we're playing house." He set the napkin down. He poured himself a bourbon. He went to the den to watch the SEC football game. That was the first time he saw my work. It was also the first time he dismissed it. And every single time after that, every single time, for 22 years, he would say something almost identical. Cute. Now we're playing house. Keep yourself busy, honey. It's nice that you have a hobby. The exact words varied. The contempt did not. For the first 10 years of my marriage, I embroidered in private. I made small things, napkins, pillowcases, the corners of dish towels. I did not show them to Mitchell. I gave them to friends as housewarming gifts and birthday presents. The women at my church book club always commented on them. My friend Vivian Holloway told me once, in 1999, that she kept the dish towel I had given her in a drawer because it was too pretty to use. I never told Mitchell about Vivian's compliment. I never told him about any of the compliments. I did not want him to take them from me. In the 11th year of marriage, in 2014, I started embroidering on my own clothes. I'm not sure why. I think I was 41 and tired of waiting for someone to give me permission. I bought a white linen blouse at the boutique on Broughton Street, and I embroidered a cluster of magnolia blossoms on the right shoulder. Small. 3 flowers, cream silk thread on cream linen, so the embroidery only revealed itself when the light hit it just right. I wore the blouse to my book club. Vivian Holloway told me it was the most beautiful blouse she had ever seen. The other women asked where I bought it. I told them the truth. I made the embroidery. The blouse was $60 at Levy's. 3 of the women asked if I could embroider a blouse for them. I said yes, but not for money. I would not charge friends for what I was already doing in my evenings. Over the next 8 years, I embroidered for friends, for neighbors, for women who came to my back door in Savannah with linen blouses they had bought at department stores. I embroidered magnolias and dogwood and gardenias. I embroidered Carolina wrens and cardinals and ruby-throated hummingbirds. I embroidered the things I saw when I walked through Forsyth Park in the mornings. I used silk floss, because cotton looks dead under good light. I used satin stitch and French knots and stem stitch and split stitch. I taught myself everything from books and from a single workshop I drove to in Charleston when Mitchell was at a dental conference in Atlanta. Mitchell did not know about most of the work. The blouses left my house in tote bags. The money, when women insisted on paying, was $100 here, $200 there. I kept it in an envelope behind my Williams-Sonoma cookbooks in the pantry. By the end of 2023, the envelope held $4,800. Mitchell mocked the embroidery he could see, the blouses I wore, the handkerchief in his Sunday pocket once when his mother visited, the Christmas ornaments I made for our tree. Cute, honey. You're going to put your eyes out, sitting at that hoop in the dark. She's at it again. Hobby season. Don't get her started. The words wore me down for 22 years. The way water wears down a stone. Not all at once. Not violently. Just slowly, year after year, until you wake up one morning and realize the shape of you is no longer the shape of you. And then we went to dinner at the country club on the second Saturday of May, 2025. The Savannah Country Club holds its spring formal on the second Saturday of May. It has held the spring formal on the second Saturday of May since 1949. The men wear navy. The women wear pastels. The dinner is at 7 o'clock and the dancing starts at 9. Mitchell had been a member of the club for 19 years. I had attended every spring formal of those 19 years. I wore the white linen blouse with the cardinal that night because I had not done my laundry on Friday and the dress I had planned to wear was still wet from the morning. I almost did not go. I almost called Vivian and asked her to cover for me. But Mitchell had been promoted to chairman of the club's membership committee that month, and he wanted me there. I sat between Vivian and her husband, Charles Holloway. Across from us were the Sutters and the Beaumonts and the Ravenels. 3 couples Mitchell had been trying to impress for years. Carter Sutter ran the largest private equity firm in coastal Georgia. Charles Holloway sat on the board of 3 local banks. The Ravenels were old Charleston money who had moved to Savannah 20 years before and had not yet been fully accepted by Savannah society. Mitchell ordered bourbon before the menus arrived. The first hour of dinner was uneventful. The salad course came and went. The breadbasket was refilled twice. Mitchell told 2 stories I had heard at every dinner party for the last decade, the one about his medical school roommate and the one about the time he met Vince Dooley at the Augusta National. The men laughed at the right places. The women smiled at the right places. It was during the entree that Vivian noticed my sleeve. She leaned across to me and said, "Helen, that cardinal, did you do that?" "I did." "That's gorgeous. Where did you get the blouse?" "Levy's, years ago. The embroidery is mine." Vivian lifted my left wrist gently, the way one lifts a small bird. She examined the cardinal. She turned my wrist to the candlelight. She said, "Helen, this is exceptional work. I had no idea." She set my wrist down. She turned to her husband. She told Charles to look. Charles looked. He said it was lovely. The Ravenel woman across the table, Sarah Ravenel, mid-50s, dressed in pale yellow, leaned over and asked to see. That was when Mitchell looked up from his bourbon. "What's everyone looking at?" "Helen's embroidery," Charles said, "on her blouse. She did it herself." Mitchell laughed. The laugh was familiar. I had heard it for 22 years. "Oh, that. Yeah, that's her thing. She does little birds and flowers on her clothes. It's cute." He drained the bourbon. He waved the waiter over for another. He turned to the rest of the table and said, loud enough that the people at the next table could hear, "My wife thinks she's an artist now. She embroiders flowers on her own clothes like an elderly Mennonite. It's pathetic, honestly, but it keeps her busy, so I let her." The table laughed. I did not look up. The man at the next table stopped eating. After Mitchell delivered the line about the elderly Mennonite, the conversation at our table moved on. Carter Sutter started a story about a yacht in Hilton Head. The waiters cleared the entree plates. Mitchell ordered another bourbon. I sat with my hands folded in my lap. I did not cry. The Crawford women do not cry at the country club. But I made a decision. I was 52 years old. I had been married for 22 years. I had embroidered in private for the first 10 of those years and in semi-private for the next 12. I had given my work to friends and neighbors and women at my church. I had stitched for free or for $100 when someone insisted. I had hidden a small envelope of cash in my pantry behind cookbooks I did not use. In that moment, in my chair at the country club, with my husband's laughter still ringing in the room, I decided that I was going to find out, finally, what my embroidery was worth. Not to my friends, not to the women at my church, to someone who did not know me, to someone with no reason to be kind. I did not know how I was going to do this. I only knew that I was going to. I asked Vivian if she could excuse me. I said I needed the ladies' room. I stood up. I walked through the dining room without looking at Mitchell, who was telling Carter another story. The man from the next table was waiting in the foyer. He was tall, lean, gray hair cut short. Maybe 55, maybe 60. He had the bearing of someone who had spent his life being looked at by people who knew his name. I had never seen him before, and I have lived in Savannah for 52 years. He stepped toward me. "Ma'am, I'm sorry to intrude. I'd like to give you my card." He held it out. I took it. The card was white, the lettering was black. The name was Thomas Beaumont. The company was the Magnolia Row. "I run a small chain of boutiques across the South," he said. 12 stores. From Savannah to Birmingham. We do women's clothing, linen, silk, hand-finished. For the last 2 years, I have been looking for someone to do hand embroidery for our summer capsule. I have not found anyone whose work I respect. He paused. He looked at the sleeve of my blouse. "I respect your work, ma'am. Could we meet on Monday?" I did not say anything for a moment. I felt the floor of the foyer under my heels and the chandeliers above my head and the laughter from the dining room behind me. I said yes. He nodded once. He walked back into the dining room. I watched him sit down beside a woman in a navy dress who was clearly his wife. He did not look at our table on the way past. I went into the ladies' room. I locked the door of the stall. I sat down on the closed toilet lid. And only then did I let myself cry. Quietly, without smudging the makeup, without making a sound that anyone could hear. When I came out, I washed my hands. I looked at myself in the mirror. I tucked the card into the inside pocket of my clutch. I went back to the dinner. Mitchell did not notice I had been gone for almost 20 minutes. He was on his 5th bourbon. He was telling Sarah Ravenel about his new putter. I sat down. I unfolded my napkin. I picked up my salad fork, even though the salads were long gone. I did not say a word for the rest of the dinner. I met Thomas Beaumont on Monday morning at 10 o'clock at his office on Whitaker Street. The office was on the 2nd floor of an old townhouse, above a stationery shop. The walls were painted soft cream. There were framed sketches of dresses from his mother's first collection in 1972. His assistant, a young woman named Claire, brought me a cup of coffee and a small plate of shortbread. Thomas sat across from me at a long table covered in linen samples and embroidery hoops. He spoke for 45 minutes. He told me his mother had started the Magnolia Row in 1972 with one store on Broughton Street, 3 blocks from where we were sitting. She had been a dressmaker. She had a particular eye for hand finishing, pearl buttons, French seams, hand-embroidered details. The brand had grown slowly. 1 store became 3 by 1985. 3 became 7 by 2000. His mother had retired in 2008, and Thomas had taken over the company that year. He had a degree from Parsons School of Design in New York. He had worked for 8 years as a designer in Manhattan before coming home. The Magnolia Row now had 12 stores, 3 in Savannah, 2 in Charleston, 2 in Atlanta, and 1 each in Beaufort, Wilmington, Asheville, Birmingham, and Charlotte. "We don't grow fast," he said. "We grow correctly." He pulled out a binder. He showed me a proposal for a summer capsule for 2026. 8 pieces, 4 blouses, 4 pairs of trousers and skirts, each piece hand-embroidered. Limited edition of 200 per piece, totaling 1,600 units across the company. Retail between $145 and $285 per piece. He said he would pay me $25,000 as a design fee, plus $8 in royalty per piece sold. If the capsule sold through, I would earn another $12,800 in royalties. Total potential, $37,800 for the first capsule. If the capsule did well, we would discuss a permanent collaboration. He said, "Ma'am, your work is the best I have seen in 17 years of looking. I am not flattering you. I am telling you what I know." I sat there in his office above the stationery shop, holding the cup of coffee his assistant had made me, and I did the math in my head. The envelope behind my cookbooks held $4,800. Thomas was offering me almost 8 times that amount as a starting fee. I said yes. I signed the contract that morning. I drove home. I parked in the driveway of the house Mitchell and I had lived in for 15 years. I went into the kitchen. I took the envelope out from behind the cookbooks. I counted the cash one more time, $4,820. I put the envelope in my purse. I did not tell Mitchell anything. For the next 5 months, I embroidered every day. I worked in the upstairs bedroom that Mitchell and I had once called the office, the room he had not entered in 3 years since he had moved his desk to the dental practice. I set up 2 embroidery hoops on stands by the window. I ordered silk floss in custom-dyed colors from a woman in Asheville who hand-dyes thread for restoration work on antique quilts. I worked from 7 in the morning until noon, broke for lunch, worked from 1 until 5, broke for the gym, then came home and worked until 10 at night. By the end of November of 2025, I had finished 4 of the 8 pieces. The first was a white linen blouse with magnolia blossoms cascading down the right sleeve from shoulder to wrist, 29 flowers in total, each one with a yellow French knot at the center. The second was a pair of cream silk trousers with a Carolina wren embroidered above each hem, head tilted as though listening. The third was a sage green blouse with dogwood blossoms scattered across the collar and lapels. The fourth was a pale blush linen skirt with a single small cardinal on the back hip, almost hidden, like a secret. I delivered the 4 pieces to Thomas at the office on Whitaker Street the first Monday of December. He examined each one for almost an hour. He held them up to the light. He turned them inside out. He ran his thumb along the seams. He looked at me. "Helen, these are museum pieces. We're going to have to limit the editions even further." He revised the contract that afternoon. The new edition would be 140 pieces per design instead of 200. Total of 1,120 units. Retail prices raised by 20%. My royalty per piece raised to $12. The new total potential for the first capsule, $38,440. I drove home that evening. Mitchell was already in bed. I sat in the kitchen, alone, with a cup of decaffeinated coffee, and I looked out the window at the Spanish moss hanging from the live oak in our backyard. I had been married to him for 22.5 years. I had embroidered for 22 of those. I had hidden cash in a pantry. I had heard him call my work pathetic in front of friends, neighbors, my own mother once. I had let him take 22 years from me without ever once saying I was tired. The contract was signed. The royalty was banking account level money. The pieces would be in 12 stores in 5 months. I finished the remaining 4 pieces between December and February. I delivered the last one, a cream silk blouse with a hummingbird stitched at the cuff so small it could be missed entirely, on the 3rd of February, 2026. The capsule was photographed in early March in a studio in Charleston. Thomas hired a photographer who had done editorial work for Garden and Gun. I went to the shoot. I stood behind the cameras. I watched a young woman, about 28, dark hair, sharp shoulders, model my embroidered magnolia blouse. The photographer told her to turn slightly to the left so the light would catch the silk thread. The thread caught the light. The magnolias glowed. The young woman smiled at me from across the studio. "Ma'am, who did this embroidery?" "I did. That's the most beautiful work I have ever seen on a piece of clothing." I went home that evening. Mitchell was watching golf. He did not ask where I had been. I told him I had been at Vivian's for tea. He said, "That woman has too much time on her hands." The capsule launched on the 1st of April, 2026, 12 stores. The pieces were displayed on solid maple mannequins in the windows of every Magnolia Row location from Savannah to Birmingham. The flagship store on Broughton Street, 3 blocks from where I had bought my first linen blouse, had a special window display, a single magnolia blouse on a mannequin with a black and white framed portrait of me beside it. The portrait was a photograph the photographer had taken at the Charleston shoot when I had not realized I was being photographed. I was sitting on a stool holding an embroidery hoop, and I was smiling at something the photographer had said. My hair was loose. My eyes were on the work. The caption under the portrait read, "Helen Crawford for the Magnolia Row, hand-embroidered summer capsule, limited to 140 pieces per design." Mitchell did not know. He did not know on the 1st of April because he did not walk down Broughton Street. He did not know on the 2nd of April because he was at a dental conference in Charleston. He did not know on the 3rd or the 4th or the 5th or the 6th. He found out on the 8th. It was a Wednesday morning. He was driving from our house on East 47th Street toward his dental practice on Skidaway Road. He was running late. He took the shortcut through downtown, which he never takes. He passed the flagship store on Broughton Street. He saw the window. He saw the mannequin. He saw the blouse. He saw the photograph beside it. He saw me. He pulled over. He parked illegally. He got out of the car. He walked across the street. He stopped in front of the window. He stood there for 2 full minutes, reading the caption over and over. Then he walked into the store. The sales associate, a young woman named Caroline, was at the front. She smiled at him. "Good morning. Can I help you find something?" What is this? What is this collection?" Caroline turned toward the window display, then back to him. She smiled even wider. "Oh, that's our hand-embroidered summer capsule. It's exclusive to us. The embroidery is done by hand by a woman from Savannah, Helen Crawford. She lives, let me check, yes, here in town. The pieces are flying off the shelves. We've already sold out of 2 of the 8 pieces. The magnolia blouse has a wait list of 14 names." She paused. She tilted her head. "Wait, Crawford. Are you any relation to Helen? You look a bit like the description she gave us of her husband." Mitchell did not answer. "Oh my goodness. Are you Mr. Crawford? Helen's husband? You must be so proud. Mr. Beaumont, the owner, just came in this morning. Let me see if he's still in the back. He'd love to meet you." Thomas Beaumont came out from the back office a moment later. He was holding a coffee. He recognized Mitchell immediately, the man from the country club, who had spent an entire dinner mocking his wife's hands. Thomas did not change his expression. He did not extend his hand. He gave Mitchell a small, perfectly cordial nod, the nod that one member of a country club gives to another in public when there is nothing to say. "Dr. Crawford." Mitchell could not speak. Thomas turned to Caroline. "Caroline, when Mr. Sutter calls about his daughter's bridal shower order, please make sure we add the cardinal cuffs to the package." "Yes, Mr. Beaumont." Thomas walked back to his office. He did not look at Mitchell again. Caroline turned back to Mitchell with a customer service smile. "Was there something I can help you with today, sir?" Mitchell shook his head. He walked out of the store. He stood on Broughton Street in front of the window for another full minute, looking at the photograph of me on the wall. Then he drove to his dental practice. He did not come home until 10 that night. "I am Helen Crawford. I am 53 years old now. I am standing in the upstairs bedroom of a small rental cottage on East Charlton Street in the historic district of Savannah, 4 blocks from where I grew up. The cottage has 2 bedrooms. I signed the lease in March, with the design fee from the Magnolia Rose first capsule and the $4,820 I had kept in an envelope behind cookbooks for 12 years. Mitchell still lives in the house we shared on East 47th Street. The divorce papers will be filed on Monday. Vivian Holloway gave me the name of an attorney. Her sister-in-law, Anne, took my case the day after the capsule launched. The capsule sold out completely on April the 22nd, 3 weeks after launch. Thomas Beaumont called me that afternoon to discuss a permanent collaboration. 3 new capsules per year. Fall, winter, spring, same terms. Better royalty after the first year. He suggested we have lunch at the old Pink House to celebrate. I said yes. There is a photograph on the wall of my new bedroom. It is the same photograph from the flagship window. It was framed by Thomas's wife, Margaret, as a gift. She wrote a small note on the back. For the woman who heard us through the partition. There is a small embroidery hoop on the table beside the bed. There is silk floss in a glass jar. Sage green, cream, dusty rose, soft yellow. There is a new blouse on a hanger by the closet, half finished, a Carolina wren in mid-flight, 6 inches across the back, the largest piece I have ever attempted. It will not be in a capsule. It is for me. Mitchell has not called. He has not written. The country club gossip has reached me through Vivian, who hears everything. He does not attend dinners anymore. Carter Sutter does not return his calls. The Ravenels have stopped inviting him to their Tuesday bridge nights. He stopped going to the spring formal this year. I went, alone. I wore the blouse with the magnolias. For 22 years, my husband called my embroidery a pathetic hobby, but the man at the next table heard him say it, and I heard it too, finally, for the first time, with new ears. And I decided I was no longer going to be a woman whose work lived in a pantry. The cardinal on my left wrist is still there. I have not removed the blouse from my closet. I wear it every Sunday morning when I walk to Forsyth Park and watch the live oaks move in the wind. If this story touched you, leave a comment telling me what you felt and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. I'll see you in the next one.